In April 1912, the world's largest and most luxurious passenger liner began her maiden voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. She had been promoted as a marvel of modern engineering, a ship so advanced many believed she was practically unsinkable. Just days later, that belief would be shattered. This is the story of the RMS Titanic. At the start of the 20th century, transatlantic travel was highly competitive. The Cunard Line had built fast, powerful ships like the Lusitania and Maritime, designed to win speed records. But White Star Line chose a different strategy. Instead of focusing on speed, they aimed to dominate in size, comfort, and luxury. The result were the Olympic-class liners, and Titanic was the crown jewel. Measuring 882 feet in length and weighing over 46,000 gross tons, she was an engineering giant. Construction began in 1909 at the Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast, England. Thousands of workers spent more than 2 years assembling her massive steel hull, frame by frame, plate by plate. When she was launched in May 1911, enormous crowds gathered to witness the spectacle. But it would take nearly another year of fitting and finishing before she was ready for passengers. On April 10, 1912, Titanic departed Southampton, England, bound for New York City. Although she could carry more than 2,400 passengers, a coal strike had reduced bookings. About 1,317 passengers and roughly 900 crew members were on board. Shortly after departure, a near disaster occurred. As Titanic passed another ship, the SS New York, the suction from her enormous displacement caused the smaller vessel's mooring lines to snap. For a tense moment, collisions seemed inevitable. Tugboats rushed to assist, and Titanic reversed her engines just in time. The crisis was narrowly avoided. At the helm was Captain Edward Smith, one of White Star Line's most experienced commanders. Known for his calm presence and popularity among wealthy travelers, he had been chosen to lead Titanic on her maiden voyage. After brief stops in Cherbourg, France and Queenstown, Ireland, the ship set out across the open Atlantic on her first and final ocean crossing. Life on board reflected the social divisions of the era. First-class passengers enjoyed extraordinary luxury: grand staircases, elegant dining saloons, Turkish baths, libraries, and cafes modeled after Parisian style. Second-class accommodations were comfortable and stylish, comparable to first class on many other ships. Even third-class passengers, many of them immigrants seeking new lives in America, experienced conditions far better than those typically found on other liners of the time. For several days, the voyage was smooth and uneventful. But Sunday, April 14th, would change everything. Throughout the day, Titanic's wireless operators received multiple warnings from other ships about heavy ice fields ahead. That spring had produced an unusually high number of icebergs drifting south into shipping lanes. Captain Smith adjusted the ship slightly southward, but Titanic continued traveling at near full speed. That evening, the sea was calm, unusually calm. The surface was like glass, with no waves breaking against potential ice. The sky was clear, but there was no moon. Visibility was deceptive. At 11:40 p.m., lookouts Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee spotted a dark shape directly ahead. Fleet rang the warning bell 3 times and telephoned the bridge. "Iceberg, right ahead." First Officer William Murdoch reacted immediately, ordering the helm turned hard to port and the engines reversed. The massive ship began to swing, slowly. For a brief moment, it appeared Titanic might clear the obstacle, but the iceberg scraped along the starboard side below the waterline. The impact felt minor to many passengers. There was no dramatic crash. Instead, steel plates buckled and rivets popped, opening several narrow gaps beneath the surface. Within minutes, seawater was pouring into the forward compartments. Ship designer Thomas Andrews inspected the damage and delivered a devastating conclusion. 5 watertight compartments were flooding. Titanic had been designed to survive 4. She could not stay afloat. He estimated the ship had perhaps 2 hours. At first, there was little panic. Many passengers did not grasp the seriousness of the situation. Stewards calmly instructed people to put on life belts and proceed to the boat deck. But there was a critical problem. Lifeboat regulations at the time were outdated. Titanic carried lifeboats for only about half the people on board. The assumption had been that lifeboats would ferry passengers to rescue ships, not hold everyone at once. Distress signals were sent out by wireless, first CQD, then the newer SOS signal. Nearby ships responded, including the RMS Carpathia, which turned around and raced towards Titanic's position at full speed, but it was nearly 60 miles away. As the bow sank lower into the Atlantic, the ship's tilt became noticeable. Lifeboats were lowered, at first half-filled, as some passengers hesitated to leave the seemingly safer ship. Confusion over the order "women and children first" meant procedures varied from boat to boat. By around 1:30 a.m., the angle of the deck made the danger undeniable. More lifeboats departed fully loaded. Families were separated. Husbands kissed wives goodbye. Crew members worked steadily as the cold intensified. Shortly after 2 a.m., the bow was submerged. The stern lifted dramatically into the air. Under immense stress, the ship's structure failed. Titanic broke apart, and the lights went out. At 2:20 a.m., the stern disappeared beneath the surface. More than 1,000 people were left in the freezing water. The temperature was near 0 degrees Celsius. Hypothermia set in rapidly. Within minutes, the cries for help began to fade. Around 3:30 a.m., the lights of Carpathia appeared on the horizon. One by one, survivors were lifted from lifeboats. By 9 a.m., the rescue was complete. Of about 2,200 people on board, around 712 survived. More than 1,500 lives were lost. The tragedy led to sweeping changes in maritime safety. Lifeboat requirements were updated to ensure sufficient capacity for all aboard. Continuous radio watches became mandatory. The International Ice Patrol was established to monitor iceberg dangers in the North Atlantic. The sinking of Titanic remains one of the most studied disasters in history, a powerful reminder of both human ambition and human vulnerability. More than a century later, the questions still linger. What if the iceberg had been spotted sooner? What if nearby ships had responded differently? What if there had been enough lifeboats? History cannot be changed, but it can be remembered, and the story of Titanic continues to echo across time.